All right, guys, I am back. I am back. Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to continue with the reading of the Atonement Child. Now, for those of you who are just coming, those of you who don't know, Sister Liz, yes, those of you who don't know what this book is about, let me just give you a little bit of a refresher. This book is about a young woman, Dynah, who was enrolled in a Christian college. She was raised Christian. She's the only child for her parents, and they simply adore her. In college, she meets the young man who is the star student being trained to become a pastor. They become engaged, and her life seems to be going according to plan. Then one evening on campus, she was brutally violated by someone she didn't know. Now she has discovered that through that encounter, she was impregnated. And being that she's attending a Christian college, she was asked to leave. The boyfriend is very upset that this happened to her, but he's not saying the magic words that he's calling off the engagement. However, he is like passing off some low blows onto Dinah. So Dinah eventually gave him back the engagement ring. She leaves college and she drives back home to California. Now she's home. She has developed the guts to tell her mom what has happened and why she's home. But as for her dad, she hasn't told him yet. Her mom hasn't told him yet either because she's afraid to tell him. Joseph, yeah, me not tell us there from um Friday the rain with me. Friday the rain with me Friday. And then Friday night my throat start feel ticklish. And then yesterday, yeah. But me not feel like, you not feel weak or stuff like that. Me not feel weak, me not feel sick, if you know what I mean. Me not feel sick. Like me still have my energy, do everything what me need for do and stuff. It's just the sniffles me have. Yeah, from the rain with me. I wish the rain with me Friday or Thursday. One of them day there. And then coming out of the warmth in Florida, me come right into the cold in North Carolina. So, oh well, it is what it is. But we're gonna move right along. Yeah, but I'm here. Maria, how are you doing, my love? Good to see you. Welcome, Maria. How is the little kiddos, my love? How are the kiddos doing? Yes, Joseph. So you're right. Me really not sound right with you because we have the little sniffles. But anyway, so Dinah now it has come to bear that her mom, Dinah's mother, had also had an abortion when she was a young woman. And that was before she had met Dinah's dad, her current husband. And it has caused a wedge between them. And I don't even know why it caused a wedge between them. Some women just like to tell one man everything. If you have an abortion before you even meet this man, why you need to tell him that? You think it's gonna make him love you anymore? No, that's not business. Like, that's none of his business. What happened to you before you all met? You gotta limit how much you tell. Because these men will turn around, and women too, will turn around and use it against you. You know, if you have had some misfortune, they'll turn around and act as though the misfortune you caused it upon yourself. As though you went out and purchased the misfortune. You know? So people can be very unkind. Some things you just keep to yourself. So she had told her husband about the relationship she had before and how she got pregnant and how she had aborted the baby. And from then on, she was having a difficult time getting pregnant until finally they had Dynah. And her justification for that is that Dynah was clearly her atonement child, because Dynah came after several miscarriages, and the miscarriages, they said, were related to the fact that she had the abortion, and that was what had rendered her infertile for so long, and all of that. So she really adored Dynah, as being like God forgave her for having had the abortion, and finally he made her have a child of her own. So now she is grappling with the thought of having her only child go through the same thing. Should she assist Dynah in having an abortion, or should she just let Dynah have the baby and let the chips fall where they may? I mean, I know them decisions, they very, very, very hard to make. You know, to each his own. To each his own. Me know me not ask no question. Somebody rape me, violate me like that, get me pregnant, me not ask nobody no question on me if you do because of my body. And when the turmoil and the torment start take me, who are gonna help me with it? When everybody a taught Bible and I say, no, you can't do this, and you not do that, and you not do that, and you gonna go at hell and this and that and that. I'm living this life right now. Why me should live it in torment when there are options? Child, please. Not I. But anyway, Dynah is having a rough time deciding what to do. So we want to find out now what suggestion her mom has given her about this pregnancy. We know she cannot tell her daddy. She can't tell her daddy. So we are going to continue reading. We are going to continue reading tonight and see what else has happened between Dynah and her mom and her dad. All right, guys? Okay. Now, Evie had come in the picture. Evie is Dynah's grandmother. That's her mother's mother. Okay? Evie heard the soft click as her daughter hung up the telephone. She held her own receiver a moment longer before putting it gently back in the cradle. She sat for a long moment in her recliner, the television droning Entertainment Tonight. Standing up, she crossed the room and punched the power button. The room fell into silence. Sighing, she walked over to the cathedral windows and looked out over Applegate Valley. The views always gave her a sense of peace. Dusk had arrived, and a single star shone in the heavens. Soon it would be dark, not like the dark of the city, where the street lights and headlights and the building lights obscured the brilliance. The heavens looked different in the country, more startling. Crisp, clear, closer. In the beginning, those stars had made her feel small and alone when she and Frank had moved here 18 years ago and built this A-frame house. It had been more Frank's dream than her own. She would have preferred staying in East Bay area, close to Anna and Greg and their families. Frank had said it made no sense to try to live where where their children and grandchildren lived. Young families, families just starting out, moved. And moved they did. Greg went to Texas 14 years ago, then to Georgia, and most recently to Illinois. His three children were almost grown, and she hardly knew them. She and Frank would have had to be gypsies to keep up with them. Only Hannah had sunk roots in San Francisco. Sodom and Gomorrah, Frank had called it. He had always preferred having Anna and Douglas and Dinah come up to the pristine environment of the Applegate Valley rather than making the long drive south. His health had given ready excuse. Frank, I miss you. I thought the ache would have diminished by now, but it hadn't. 5 years, and I still cry for you. She remembered the last week of his life in Medford Hospital and their last conversation. He had said he was sorry. He hadn't needed to explain. She had known immediately what he was talking about. It still hurt to think about it, to realize it had haunted him all those years, just as it had haunted her. She had never realized. Maybe if she had, they could have talked about it together. They might have been able to help one another climb the mountain of grief that had stood between them. Oh Lord, the ramifications of our sin. If we could but see beforehand, or admit it afterwards. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. I've turned to you 1,000 times, Lord, over and over and over again. And still it's there. An ache deep inside me. What would I do without you, Lord? Still, I don't understand. What I did all those years ago had nothing to do with Anna. And yet, she suffered. And now Dinah will suffer too. Oh Lord God. It's like a curse that runs down deep through the family. The sins of the mother visited upon her children. Why did it start? Why did it start, Lord? Oh Jesus, how do we stop it? The telephone rang. It was Gladys McGill, her neighbor, checking upon her. Shortly after Frank died, George McGill had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She and Gladys had consoled one another. They took turns caring. They took turns calling one another. She called Gladys in the morning, and Gladys called her in the evenings. Did you tell Anna about the doctor's diagnosis? Oh, it slipped my mind. Slipped your mind? What do you mean it slipped your mind? Blame it on hardening of the arteries and senile dementia. Evie Daniels, you know you have to make some decisions about chemotherapy. I don't have to be in a hurry. The longer you wait. Anna has problems enough without me adding to them. Anna is going to be mad as a wet hen when she finds out, and you know it. Remember how she felt when you and Frank kept his heart condition a secret? Oh, I remember. I'm going down tomorrow afternoon anyway. I promise I'll find a way to work it into a casual conversation. Her words were met with a pause. Trouble? Gladys said quietly. In spades. Oh, I'm sorry. Pray for us, would you, Glad? Unceasingly, as I always do. How long will you be gone? Evie heard the wistfulness in her dear friend's voice. A week, 10 days, I'm not sure. I may be bringing Dynah back with me. She didn't say any more than that, and Gladys didn't ask any more questions. God bless her. I'm worried about you, Glad. And when she say Glad, that's the short form for Gladys. Don't be, darling. I'll be fine. I'll call the brigade to check up on you while I'm gone, she said, as lightly as possible. The brigade? Yes, the brigade. The brigade was made up of Evie, Gladys, and three other women their age who had bonded together over the last few years. All but one of their all but one of their group were widows, hence their self-appointed name, the Widows' Brigade. Evie knew Gladys could be forgetful about taking her heart medication, and she also knew the brigade would watch her like a hawk. Fine, but it's probably not necessary. Florence called me yesterday, talked for almost an hour. You forget how many lonely little old widow ladies are living up here in the woods. I couldn't be left alone even if I tried. Evie laughed. Call me when you get to San Francisco, Gladys said in a commanding tone. And drink lots of tea on the way so you won't fall asleep at the wheel. If I drink lots of tea, I'll be making a lot of stops. All the better. You should get out and stretch your arthritic old bones anyway. Thanks for the advice, you old coot. Gladys laughed. I love you. Now be careful. I love you too, my dear. Don't forget to lock your doors. Evie sighed. Sometimes I wonder about your timing, Lord. She decided her own bad news could wait. Chapter 5. Dinah arose from a deep sleep and saw her father sitting on the edge of her bed. Hi, Princess, he said, brushing the hair back from her forehead. Daddy? She sat up and reached for him, needing to feel the solidness of him, the sense of security she had always felt in his arms. Douglas drew his daughter into his arms, holding her firmly against his heart. I love you, baby, he said, choked with emotion. How long since she'd reached for him like this? He'd like to use Ethan Goodson Turner as a punching bag. Either that or thank him for giving his daughter back to him. You aren't disappointed in me, are you, Daddy? Disappointed? Douglas kissed the top of her forehead. How could I be disappointed? There are other colleges and other young men smarter than Ethan Turner. Dinah shivered slightly. Shutting her eyes tightly, she breathed in the scent of her father. Old Spice, Colgate, and that crisply ironed business shirt and newly dry-cleaned suit. He was on his way to work. Did Mom talk to you? She said cautiously. Briefly last night when I came home. Dinah drew back slowly and looked at him, her heart thumping. He was smiling, at ease, his eyes filled with compassion. It's not the end of the world, Dinah. She couldn't speak. I know it feels that way right now, but things will look different in a few weeks. Just give it some time. In a few weeks, she would be showing her pregnancy. Oh, Daddy. She saw her mother standing in the open doorway. She was wearing her long bathrobe. Dinah could see the tension in her body and the swift shake of her head in warning. What's the matter, honey? Douglas said. Dinah looked at her father and saw something in his eyes that held her silent. Nothing. She lowered her head. It just hurts to trust someone and have them let you down. I know, honey. Life hurts. We'll talk about it tonight. Dinah looked up at her father as he rose. Do you have to go? I'll make it a short day. He touched her face lightly, bending down to kiss her on the cheek again. You have still got me, Princess. What do you say we go to dinner and take in a movie the way we used to? Just the two of us. Her eyes filled with tears. Dinner and the movie wouldn't fix what was wrong with her, but it might ease the way for him. If her mother couldn't tell him the truth, she was going to have to do it. I like that, Daddy. Maybe for one last evening she could pretend she was a child again. Pretend her father could protect her from everything. As he headed for the door, Dinah sluggled down into the covers, drawing them up until they almost covered her head. She met her mother's eyes briefly and turned away. Anna followed Douglas down the stairs. She hadn't slept well the night before. She never did after they argued. Her throat ached as she watched him pick up his suitcase and keys. Pulling her wardrobe more tightly, she wrapped her arms around herself, feeling cold. Douglas, his knuckles whitened on the handle of the briefcase. "Everything will be all right," he said, as though uttering the words aloud would make it so. "We'll talk things over tonight, darling." He kissed her on the cheek. "I love you. I love you too." More than he'd ever believe. Lord, why does it have to be this way? "I'll call you later." She stood in the family room and listened to the garage door open and close. Depressed, she started back upstairs. She wanted to go back to bed and never get up again. As she came abreast of Dinah's door, she glanced in and saw her daughter sitting on the edge of her bed, a multicolored granny square afghan wrapped around her shoulders. She glanced up, her eyes bleak. "You didn't tell him, did you?" Hannah paused in the doorway. She shook her head. "No, I didn't. He was tired last night. I thought it'd be better to wait." When Dinah said nothing, she went on, wanting to make amends, wanting her daughter to understand. But how could she when she didn't know everything and Anna couldn't tell her? Why don't we both take long hot showers and get dressed? I'll fix waffles and we'll talk about it. How does that sound?" Dinah was quiet. "We'll work things out, honey." When Anna came downstairs an hour later, Dinah was there waiting, dressed in grey leggings and a pale blue tunic sweater, her long blonde hair woven into a loose French braid. She had already made the coffee and was holding a half an empty cup before her. "Hungry?" Hannah said, smiling and opening the cabinets. She needed to be busy, her hands full, doing something, anything. "Is he going to be mad, Mom? Is that why you didn't tell him?" "Not at you." She set waffle ingredients on the kitchen counter and reached for one of the nesting bowls. Opening a drawer, she took out a whisk. "It's going to be a shock, that's all." That wasn't the half of it, but what could she say? Dinah watched her mother work. She wished she would sit down and look at her. She wished she would be still and listen. Even when the waffles were finished and served, her mother had trouble sitting and eating. She had to get up again, pour herself some more coffee, offer orange juice. Dinah supposed she and her mother dealt with catastrophe in different ways. Her mother moved, a bundle of energy, while she sat immobilized. Finally, when the dishes were rinsed and put in the dishwasher, her mother had no choice but to sit, folding her hands, and looked at her daughter. Dinah saw the lines of exhaustion around her mother's eyes and felt guilty. Maybe coming home was a bad idea. "Have you thought very much about what you want to do?" Dinah lowered her eyes. "Yes, no, I don't know. I'm so confused, Mom." Anna took a deep breath, exhaling it slowly before she spoke. You have options, darling." Dinah raised her head and stared at her mother. She blinked. "Dinah, there isn't a soul who would speak against you if you decided to have an abortion. Under these circumstances, who would dare?" She saw the shock on her daughter's face and added quickly, "I'm not saying you should have an abortion. I'm not saying that at all." "Aren't you?" No, no, I'm not." The words sounded feeble. You have always said how wrong it is when it's used for convenience or birth control or a way of getting out of responsibility. Yes, it's wrong. None of these reasons apply in this situation, Dinah. You didn't bring this upon yourself. You didn't make a choice. God's in control, isn't he? Haven't you and Daddy always said that? With a shudder, Anna looked down into her coffee cup. This is where Ethan and I ran into trouble, Mom. He said God wouldn't want this for us, and I should have an abortion. When I couldn't, everything unraveled. Things might have changed given time. Dinah shook her head. I don't think so. I had a lot of time to think on the drive back. Even if I had gone through with an abortion, it wouldn't have made a difference. Why? Because Ethan didn't love me anymore. He raised She raised tear-washed eyes to her mother. In his eyes, I'm defiled. That's not fair. It doesn't have to be fair. It just is. It isn't your fault, Dynah. I know that, Mom. If I've come to accept anything over the past few months, it's that. But circumstances don't bear much weight with human emotions. I don't want you to be angry with Ethan. He couldn't help himself. Bitter anger, bitter anger filled Dinah as she thought of another time, another man. Not Dinah, Hannah. Bitter anger filled Hannah as she thought of another time, another man. You all know what she's thinking about, right? Because remember, she had gotten pregnant for her first boyfriend and she had an abortion. And that's why she was having such a hard time getting pregnant again. Well, she believed that it was a punishment from God. That's why she was having such a hard time getting pregnant again. And when she finally did it, she and Anna, she thought that God had finally relinquished his grasp on the anger that he had bestowed upon her and the punishment for having had that abortion many, many years ago. So let us continue. Bitter anger filled Anna as she thought of another time, another man. How can you make excuses for him? He could have helped you. Instead, he tossed you to the wolves. I can't forgive him for that, and neither should you. It was the first time Dinah had heard her mother speak this way. 70 times 7, she had always said before, and now everything was different. Her words rang with rancor. It didn't matter anymore, Dinah said quietly. Ethan's no longer involved. My decisions can't be based on him. Anna forced herself to calm down. She had 100 names for Ethan and what he had done or failed to do. But Dinah was right. They were they were on their own. Wasn't that the way it always was? What do you want to do, honey? Dinah smiled bleakly, eyes shadowed. I want to have someone else decide for me. I want the whole situation taken out of my hands. I want it over. She shook her head. Sometimes I think it's all a bad dream, and I'll wake up and it will be over. Anna understood. Had she felt the same way? And even when she had thought it was finally over, it wasn't. It never would be. God never forgets. He just lulls you into believing he has, and then the blow comes from where you least expect it. Dinah? Perfect. Alright, I'm back, guys. I'm back. Let us continue. God never forgets. He just lulls you into believing He has. And then the blow comes from where you least expect it. Dinah. Oh God, why Dinah? I don't know what to tell you, honey. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. So sorry this happened to you. Why didn't you just tell? Why didn't you just take me when she was born, Lord? Then the score would be even, wouldn't it? Why didn't you? Is it because you like to make people suffer? Does it please you to torment us? Don't cry, Mom, Dinah said, reaching across the table to take her hand. Please don't cry. Hannah grasped her daughter's hands and struggled to control herself. I love you, honey. You can't possibly know how much I love you or how precious you are to me. But you know, don't you, Lord? And that's why you have used my daughter. What better way to punish me? I know abortion is a horrible thing. Dinah, I know. And I know how I've spoken against it. Only, what other way is there for you to get your life back? Dinah removed her hand slowly. I can't, Mom. I can't do it. Even if I go with you, I'll stand by you. I promise. I'll be right there in the room with you every minute. Even if it kills me. I can't. Why? Because God hasn't released me. Anna felt the punch against her heart and put her hand there, pressing. What do you mean, darling? I've laid it all before him, Mom, and he hasn't given me an answer yet. I keep praying, but he won't talk to me. So I have to wait. I have to wait on him. Every day you wait will make it more difficult. I know, but I can't help it, Mom. Anna stared at her daughter helplessly. Oh, God, what are you doing to us? What are you doing? Douglas called later in the day. He had barely 2 words for Anna before informing her he had made reservations at Aliato's restaurant for him and Dinah. Though she felt rejected, Hannah said she thought it was a nice idea. Dinah had always delighted in watching the small fishing boats come in and out of the dock. Douglas said they would walk Pier 39 and shop and then take in a movie, something PG and light-hearted to lift his daughter's flagging spirits. He didn't need to say the rest. She understood. Her feelings didn't matter. She could sit home by herself and be miserable. She didn't have to drag him down into the pit with her. Not again. He didn't ask what was bothering her. He didn't want to know. Or maybe he thought he did. He always thought he could read her mind, but he didn't know the half of it. Anna made Dinah promise not to say anything to her father about the pregnancy. Make this a special evening. Put the whole thing out of your mind for a few days. Let me talk to him about it first. Confidence chipped away. Dinah gave in, afraid. Her mother wouldn't argue so strongly if she wasn't convinced something horrible was going to happen when she told her father the truth. So Dinah remained silent. She would pretend to have a wonderful time. She would make small talk and act as though a nice crab Louie and a Harrison Ford movie were all she needed to cheer her up and make her forget. Just like old times, isn't it, Princess? Douglas watched his daughter's one face closely as she smiled at him and nodded. He wanted to believe her, wanted to be convinced, but he knew his daughter almost as well as he knew himself. She was flesh of his flesh, blood of his blood, and something was wrong, terribly wrong. He could feel it. Something was bothering her. No, bothering wasn't strong enough. She was being plagued. He saw it in her eyes, felt it in his gut, and no amount of avoidance on her part or his made it any better. It was there, like a growing cancer eating away at their relationship, making them strangers to one another. Anna knew what was wrong. He was sure of it. She had probably known 2 minutes after being with Dinah. She has known the night he called from Los Angeles. She had known last night and this morning, and she was keeping it a secret. Why couldn't she tell him? Did she think anything could destroy his love for Dinah? But there it was again. Anna's distrust. And now its seeds were planted and growing in his daughter. Douglas held in his anger until Dinah was in bed. Asleep, he thought. When are you going to tell me what's going on around here? He said, proud of the calm he managed as he spoke quietly through his teeth. Anna's gaze rested on his face, and he could swear she looked nearly panicked. Promise me you'll stay calm. I am calm, on the surface, like a thin layer of blackened stone covering molten lava. Anna sat down on the far end of the couch, her hands clasped nervously. He wondered how long it would take her to get it out. It didn't take long at all. Dinah's pregnant. A fissure opened. Ethan? No, not Ethan. She let out her breath slowly and looked at him, shattered. She was raped. What? He couldn't take it in. He thought of Dinah, pretty blue-eyed Dinah, his little angel. Who would want to hurt a girl like that? When? In January. How did it happen? She told him every detail that Dinah had told her. The car in the garage undergoing repairs, the cold night, the bus ride, and the walk up Edison Avenue, the man in the white car with Massachusetts license plate. The park. Jesus, Douglas said brokenly. Jesus, God! Leaning forward, he covered his face. She doesn't want an abortion, Douglas. His head came up. Well, she's going to have one, whether she likes it or not. Hannah stared at him, and he saw the disbelief in her eyes. What are you saying? She has no choice. You tell me what choice she has, he said, angry, wanting to lash out. If the man who had done this to his daughter were to suddenly appear in the room, he'd certainly unalive him. With pleasure, slowly, as painfully as possible. Ways flashed in his head, a dozen of them, each more horrific and satisfying than the next. I don't think it's than the next, it should be than the one before. It'll be difficult, Hannah said slowly, as though trying to sort through all the ramifications at once. Not as difficult as if she doesn't do it. Think about it, he said. It's all I've been thinking about. Who is going to want a girl who had a baby by some unknown assailant? It's not her fault. I didn't say it was. Getting up, he paced, too agitated to sit. He wanted to break something, to smash it beyond repair. But she had to suffer for it. Should I? What's this got to do with you? Who do you think will have to take responsibility if she does decide to have it? Me? How's she going to finish school or get a job with a baby? You're going to be babysitting. You like that idea? You want to give up all your community work? I'm going to be paying the bills. Well, no thanks. I'm retiring in a few years. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life taking responsibility for a child forced on my daughter through rape. And neither is she. He glanced at her. It might be different if it had been someone who loved her. or someone she loved. The barb struck deep. You are angry at me, aren't you? Anna said, and he saw her tremble. It always comes back to that. Because you make it that way. She doesn't want an abortion. So what's she going to do? She doesn't know what she wants to do, Doug. Then help her figure it out. You know more about handling those situations than I do. She flinched as though from a blow. Douglas ignored her reaction, riding on his wrath. Do you think she really wants this child? You're out of your mind if you do. She just told me she never even saw the man's face. What if he was black? Oh, Lord, you all hear this, people? What if he was black? What if he has AIDS? What sort of a human being is it going to be? Who in their right mind would want it? Now lower your voice. She's upstairs. He came closer, leaning down, jaws jutting. If she refuses to have an abortion, people might even start wondering if it was rape. Have you thought of that? They might start thinking she and Ethan Turner went a little further than they intended. He saw the jab hit home, watched it sink deep, twisting. Old wounds were ripped open, and she was bleeding again. No, they won't. Not about Dynah. Right, yeah, right. Haven't you listened to the hens in our own church? They'd think it. They're delighted thinking it, especially about Dynah. She can kiss her reputation goodbye. Anna watched him pace. Are you worried about Dinah's reputation or your own? He stopped and turned his face, glaring at her. What are you talking about? Her eyes were cold. Try this on for size. People would look at you as the father of an unwed mother. He clenched his fist. Guys, we still can't get over the man saying, what if the man was black? We can't get over it. He clenched his fist. Is that what you think worries me? Don't you dare compare me to your father. I'm nothing like him. You didn't even trust him enough to tell him. Not up to the day he died. From where I sit, you look the same. I should never have told you. All I did was give you a weapon. Why do you think I'm the one telling you instead of Dynah? Because you got in the way. Yes, I did. Because I know what would happen. Because I can because I can take it better than she can. Exactly. Here goes the church again, my sister. Here goes the church. The lovely church. The wonderful church. OMG. Because I can take it better than she can. I've had practice, plenty of it. He saw the tears come to her eyes, accompanied by rage. I know what you think. I know how you feel. Don't you think I know? I've lived with it for 27 years. Douglas glared at her, cold with wrath. Oh no, you don't, Hannah. You are not dumping that horse manure on my doorsteps again. You were living with it long before I ever came on the scene. You want to blame somebody? Fine, but don't blame me. She let out her breath slowly. This isn't doing any good, she said quietly, but it was clear how shaken she was. It always shook her to get this close to it. She wanted to retreat. He was sure of it, but she couldn't. Because this time she was fighting for Dynah, her daughter. His teeth clenched. Their daughter. We have to help Dynah, she said brokenly. I don't want to watch it happen all over again. I can't. Hunching over, she covered her face. Douglas stared down at his wife and felt bereft. Why did he always come out feeling in the wrong, as though he were to blame? He had had nothing to do with what had happened to her, or what she had done. Still, it made no difference. He remembered the second time. He remembered Anna's. He remembered Anna's asking him once if he would have taken her out of a second time if she had had an illegitimate child in tow. He had said, probably. It had been the answer she needed. And amendments had never been enough to alter the damage done. She couldn't forget, or she chose not to. I can't deal with it, Anna. I'm not going to. Daddy, Douglas turned, his face going hot when he saw his daughter standing in the doorway. A quilt wrapped around her. Her eyes were puffed and red from weeping. She looked at him beseechingly, and then at her mother, sitting hunched over on the couch. I'll go, she said in a choked voice. I promise I'll talk to someone at one of those clinics. She shook her head, her eyes spilling over with tears, her mouth trembling. She clutched the quilt more tightly. Only please, don't yell at Mommy anymore. It's not her fault. It's not yours either. I never meant to be a burden. I never meant to be a burden. Turning, she fled up the stairs, feeling sick with shame. Douglas stood silent in his family room. Anna stood up and walked slowly across the room without looking at him. He wanted to say he was sorry, but for what? For hating the man who had raped his daughter? For not wanting to see this pregnancy ruin her life? Granted, his emotions had gotten out of hand, and the past had reared its ugly head again. But was that entirely his fault? Maybe if Hannah had led into the news about Dynah instead of hitting him square in the heart, he felt set up for the fall, a convenient scapegoat for all her problems. Douglas put his hand on her arm before she could pass. Tell her I love her. Take your hand off me. The coldness of her words struck him right in the gut. He gripped her harder, wanting to hold on to her, wishing just once she'd understand how he felt about all of this. I love her as much as you do. Raising her head, Hannah glared at him. Jerking free, she walked away from him and went up the stairs. Douglas didn't leave early for work the next morning. Even after a long, hot shower, he felt like he was suffering from a hangover. Dressed for work, he sat at the breakfast nook table, overlooking the small backyard flower garden, while Anna, with the air of a martyr, stood at the stove scrambling his eggs. He hadn't expected her to come downstairs and fix breakfast for him. Excuse me. He almost wished she hadn't. He would have felt better. He would have felt better if she had stayed in bed with the covers pulled up over her head, the way they had been when he went into the shower. Instead, he had to look at her rigid back and feel the glacial air in the room. What time did you finally come to bed? He said, sipping his coffee, the Wall Street Journal still sitting unopened beside his placemat. He had no stomach for news this morning. 2. She scraped the eggs onto the plate, put the frying pan in the sink, and delivered his meal to him without so much as a glance. His toast popped up. Returning to the counter, she buttered both slices, put them on a small plate, and delivered them along with a metal carrier containing 3 small porcelain pots of strawberry, grape, and plum jam. He could have his choice. Douglas bowed his head, as was his habit, and said a silent prayer, wrote words. Thank you for the food, Lord. and the hands that had prepared it. When he finished, he looked at her bleakly. God, God help us. Help us. What good does going to the church do if it all comes back to this? Anna recognized the bruised expression. Regret. Weariness. She was sorry too. But what good had it ever done? He looked at the bare space before his wife. You going to eat? No. She always felt sick to her stomach after a fight. It took a few days to climb out of the pit of depression. The lingering after effects were like a conditioned response. She always wondered what she had done to start it, what she had said to bring on the deluge, what she could do to mend her armor now that the demons were loose again. Douglas let out his sigh softly. So, she was going to play it that way. Fine. Annoyed, he ate in silence, refusing to feel guilty. Anna sat quietly, swallowing resentment with her coffee, stomach churning. She knew what was ahead. Things would get worse before they get better. Assuming, of course, that they would get better. It was Douglas who broke first. His temper was quick to life and death, unlike her endless grudges. How's Dynah? She'll be fine. The words came out stiffly. Don't worry about it. We'll solve the problem, Douglas. You don't have to dirty your hands. Unable to sit still, she got up, gathered his dishes, and went to the sink, anger choking her. It came up from deep down inside her, hot and black, deadly. Is she okay with what she has to do? After you talked with her, I mean. She's not okay with it, but she'll talk to a doctor. And I didn't tell her about what happened to me, if that's what you meant. Why not? Don't you think it's time? A chill swept over her. I didn't see the point, and she had been afraid of what her daughter would think of her, afraid of losing her respect, losing her love. It might help her to know you have been through it. Misery loves company. Was this it? I can't. You didn't have any more choice about it than she does. She gripped the edge of the sink. Why do you always see it that way the day after an argument? I wasn't the one throwing blame last night. You hurt me too. They'd become good at that over the years, hurting each other in the ways that were subtle and swift. Coming to Christ had brought an idyll. For a time, now it had begun again. Somehow, it was more devastating the second time around. She was less prepared. She stared down into the sink at the dirty dish and frying pan. I don't want her to know. Can you understand that? Douglas? Or at least try? I don't want anyone to know. I wish to God I never told you. Douglas rose and came to her, drawing her back against him, locking his arms around her even when she tensed and resisted. We'll get through it. We are a family, Hannah. It won't be like it was for you. We'll help. We'll help her get through it. Anna closed her eyes, unable to express the anguish inside her, unable even to define it. Get through it, Douglas said, as if it were impossible. And had they, in 27 years of marriage, were they over it yet? We have to help her do what's best for her, Douglas said. What's best? The words whirled in her head like locusts, eating away at her conscience. How many times had she rationalized and justified her own abortion? What else could she have done? Had the child, put it up for adoption, kept it, and what ramifications would there have been for her life and those she loved? How would her parents have dealt with it? Would her father have loved her? Not likely. So she had done it and adjusted, or so she had thought. Oh God, How many times had she thought it was over, and then something would happen to bring it to the surface again? We have to help her make the right decision, Hannah. I don't know if she's ready. God, I don't know if I am. My daughter, oh Lord, my daughter. Douglas, you were in a turmoil. Hadn't he lived with it all these years? Why she was willing to acknowledge it or whether she was willing to acknowledge it or not? I don't want to hurt you more, honey. You know I don't. She braced herself inwardly. Say what you are thinking, Douglas. He sighed heavily, his arms loosening around her. It's not the same situation as what you went through, Anna. This isn't a matter of Dinah's loving the wrong guy and being abandoned. Our daughter had no say in what happened to her. I know that. She need not feel guilty about taking care of the problem. Did he know his daughter at all? Had he considered how they had reared Dinah? Even under these circumstances, could Dinah turn and walk away from those principles and not suffer for it? Was she strong enough? I don't know if she can do it, Douglas. She can, if you are with her every step of the way. The burden seemed more than she could bear. And you? Anna turned and looked up at him. Where will you be? Right here, he said, touching her face tenderly. God, give me the strength to get through this. Help me instill the strength in her that she needs so she can help Dinah. But even as he said the prayer, he wondered why he felt sick inside and filled with so much sorrow. Wow, he knows why, and we know why. This is one of the hardest challenges for any loving family. To think that Dinah is an only child and her parents are essentially making this decision for her again, their better judgment or their Christian values. So imagine all the confusion that Dinah is going through. The way her parents raised her in the church, and her parents always talking about abortion being a bad thing. And now with her circumstance, she is thrown into this turmoil. Should I do what's right for me, or should I do what's right for the church? Well, she better go to Moses. She better go to Moses and tell Moses, listen, Moses, you did not say if a woman is raped, she should do it. So you better modify the laws. Just like how Moses had modified the laws for the daughters of Zelophehad, he could modify the law for her and tell her it is okay. Go ahead and take care of yourself. You understand? You're not going to go to hell for this. There's not going to be any sin on your shoulder for this. All the sin is going to be on that man's shoulder. So I think that's the only place left for poor Dynah to go. Because going to the church or the school church has disappointed her. Certainly the church is not going to accept her being pregnant and not married. We tell her, oh, the church it throw me out. I said, be pregnant and I'm not married. I've been seeing people in that church get pregnant and they hurry up and baptize them again. And hurry up and make them married and then baptize them again. As though that is, what is that supposed to do? That is supposed to be some kind of a cleansing. Lord, Mr. Religion can't tell people that what piece of puppy show is it. You already do the why you already get pregnant. And now the church are going to say, alright, if you hurry up and marry to you while you're pregnant and baptize you over, all is forgiven. And you are... Yeah, this church business and these rules and laws not going to work because it's too practical. I'm too practical for this kind of stuff. You have to be practical and realistic. All of this fantasy, me not this fantasy, you know. Me not this fantasy, me not real stuff. I see you, you see me, you need help, I give you help, I go on my way, we don't have to be friends. I go on my merry way. But I'm not going to help you Just because my mind is on some imaginary heaven with milk and honey around per road and lion, you're gonna play with lion. Me never want to play with a lion in their life nowadays. You're gonna play with lion and lion are gonna bite you. You're gonna play with tiger and tiger now gonna bite you and all this and all of this stuff. It's too imaginary. I like practical stuff, realistic stuff. And if I have to be kind to you because I'm thinking about dying, when I die, I'm going to go to some imaginary place, then I'm really not a kind person. That should not be an incentive for me to be human, for me to be kind to another human being. Why the incentive cannot be a realistic incentive then? Why can't it be realistic? Why it have to be imaginary? Yeah. I don't function like that. You understand? I live for reality. Yeah, not for some fictitious stuff. But here, Dynah, yes, Liz, the confusion. Poor Dynah. The confusion. Can't do for herself what is best for her because she is so worried about what the church is going to say, what the church is going to think, and the teachings of church on which her parents have brought her up. She's afraid of going against it. So if the church is going to look at it like that, then the church is not going to acknowledge that she was raped, right? The church is going to say, well, you fornicated. Because you can't take me for one sin and let me go off another. You understand? If you're going to say I cannot have this abortion, then you're going to tell me that, well, you fornicated and got pregnant with this child. Right? Or you can admit what happened to me and then give me the permission, let me go on. Why do I need permission? What I need permission from the church in the name of Jesus? Why would I need permission from the church? Call me rebellious, call me what you will. But just don't believe me. I would not want no permission from the church to do what I do. Well, for my betterment and for me. But poor Dynah. Dynah is in such conflict. Conflict with the church. Her parents are in conflict. Her dad is being realistic. Her mom too. But poor Dynah. Dynah said she asked God and she wait for God to come tell her exactly what she's supposed to do. While Dynah is waiting, that baby born that on rock. You understand? That baby's born is turning into rock. So it would have been better if she had taken the estrogen when she first went to the hospital and gotten it taken care of, rather than no, she go wait until the baby a move and she get attached to the baby and stuff. No, so that's the wrong time to do it. That is the wrong time, Dynah. I'm not with you on that. You need to get yourself together. Take care of this problem. You see what her dad is worried about? Her dad is very practical because he gonna have to take care of this child. And he's asking the mom, like, are you ready to stop doing your community service and stay home and babysit a baby? A baby that what would a piece of calamity if the baby come black? The man says suppose the baby come black. No, Jesus. I want black people to the people here, man. You understand? What if the baby come black? Cause Dynah never see the man face. Oh my word. Listen, now going through all the ifs and buts. Exactly. Going through all the ifs and buts with religion at the forefront and cannot decide if you should make the best decision for yourself. Because religion is not going to be pleased. Well, you not tell religion, say, you know, you tell us something. And this me I do and me I do. So, you go and go all your corners and make me go and go do what I need to do for myself. You get me? Yeah. But that is how it is, yeah? And that's how we are going to end this portion of the live, my friend. This is going to be it from me for today. I'm gonna go take care of my hair and all these good things. And then tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow morning, we will be on the live where we will continue reading the book of Jeremiah. Once again, I want to say thanks to everybody who came into the live and those who will come in after the live is over. I want to say, Joseph say, that means they are the best jacket that will be. But Joseph, if the pitney ever come black, you know, so that's going to be another dilemma for them. Because they don't want the baby to be black. Lord of His mercy. Hey, that's something. That is really something. But anyway, yeah, that's how it is, Joe. That's where we are going to end the live for today, my friends. I want to say thanks to everybody who came in again. I sincerely appreciate you all, guys. I am gonna go get my hair done and all these other things. So I want to say thanks again to you all, and I will see you all first thing in the morning. Until next time, guys, this is Trevor from Traversing, where your journey matters. You are welcome, Sister Liz, Jojo, my love, God, my darling, wisdom. AG, everybody else who came into the live, I sincerely appreciate. All right, Lisa, should I have to go runway? Of course, yes. The church are gonna make the woman runway. The church are gonna make the woman go crazy, not knowing what to do. Yes, Joe, I'll take care of myself and I'm gonna wash me. I'm gonna wash me here, boy. All of these sniffles will go away. You're gonna wash me here and fix it up and put out my uniform and all these good things until for tomorrow. Alright guys, so that's it for tonight. Have yourselves a great night, everybody. Love you all. See you all in the morning.